I did my action research project on the effect of seating changes on distracting behavior. My class is a sophomore biology class and is required course for graduation. I had 3 targeted students who appeared to be distracted intentionally by a 4th student. 2 of them are ELL IEP programs, and the 3rd is on a behavior plan. The distracting student is not motivated in the classroom and has less than 10% in academic progress. He is also on a behavior plan. He is projected to be removed from the classroom, and that was going to be a timestamp for us in terms of midpoint of data collection. I was hoping to use this event in an attempt to evaluate a seating chart change. I reviewed the literature. I found items on student choice versus teacher, age group, academic performance, gender, and just the quality of change. When looking at student choice of seats versus teacher choice, student choice causes at least 2-fold distraction. This is seen in a group setting. In individual traditional settings, it's 3-fold. Teacher choice resulted in far fewer distractions. Age group impacts on seating arrangements are clear as well. In younger children, traffic patterns are a primary concern. Open spaces are needed. In older children who might be involved in more cooperative or group learning, table groups are a priority. When you want to evaluate academic performance, you should view seating seriously, since seating position can have a positive impact on academic performance. This has been assessed at over 27% in some cases, and at least 5% with preferential seating. The role of gender on seating arrangements is interesting. Females tend to be far more territorial and distracting to other students based on power or from an influential seat in the classroom. Males typically didn't exhibit the same behavior. You can also evaluate academic performance in light of seating arrangements when you look at attendance rates. When you enhance attendance rates because of good seating choices, you also enhance academic performance. This is seen especially in males. In females, weren't affected in this particular study, which struck me as surprising since gender had played a role specifically with females in some of the other literature that I had read. Any change of seats in the classroom provides a disruption and impacts classroom dynamics. It typically sets off a change of problematic behavior. Over time, with a good seating plan, things do settle down and positive improvement should be seen. What I did is I changed in the classroom from a traditional seating to cooperative group seating. I balanced the table groups based on gender, academic needs, and behavioral tendencies. I faced the distractor away from targets. I faced the targets away from the distractor. When the distractor was removed from the classroom, that counted as a starting point for the second phase of data collection. Here's the original seating plan. Distractors in red, my IEP ELL students are in green, and my child on the behavior plan who's a target is in yellow. I changed to these table groups. I've had them all separated. The distractor in red is facing the right, the other 3 are facing the left, and have all been placed in a T-zone of preferential seating. Here is the data collection table that I used. I created tick marks, totaled them, and created averages. Initiators are on the vertical axis, and recipients are on the horizontal axis. Academic performance data was collected prior to the distractor being removed. That was assignments, participation, and assessments, and continued to be collected after the distractor was removed. I didn't perform any statistical analysis due to the nature of the data and such a small data set. Over the next few slides, we can see some pie charts and graphs of the distraction data. When the distractor was still present and included in the dyads tallies, we see that target number 1 is actually the chief instigator, with the distractor being second. Light green target number 1, distractor in darker green. We see that target number 2 and target number 3 are very little involved. With the distractor present but not tallied into the percentages, we see that target number 1 and target number 2 are equally distracting to each other. After the distractor left the classroom, target number 1 accounts for more than 70% of the distracting dyads, mainly with target number 2. Target number 3 seems to be avoiding distractions. The total distractions, including those with the distractor, can also be seen on the bar graph. We see that distractor number 1, or target number 1 is the chief distractor. However, when the distractor is not included, he's on a par with target number 2. Here's where the distractor not included in the tally, and we see that target number 1 and target number 2 are nearly equivalent, and target number 3 is avoiding distractions. When we look at the results of academic performance, we'll see that on the next couple of graphs. Target number 1 and number 2 show a decrease in overall academic performance. Target number 3 showed an increase in overall academic performance. However, if we look at assessments, we see that target number 1 and target number 2 are both performing relatively the same before and after the distractor was not present. Target number 3 shows an increase. When we look at the percentage of completed assignments, we can tell that the overall grade is greatly impacted by the fact that target number 1 is simply not turning in his work. Once the distractor left, he failed to turn in almost any work. Possibly not motivated to be in the classroom anymore. Maybe he saw the distractor as a social invitation in his classroom. We don't know. If we think about the distracting dyads, it was very surprising that target number 1 showed the vast majority of this behavior, and that continued to some extent even after the distractor left the classroom. However, at a much reduced rate. Target number 2 showed very little involvement and didn't show many changes once the distractor left. Target number 3 really wasn't involved at all, and this might be entirely due to the fact that he had just returned from a suspension. In terms of academic progress, we see that the failure of target number 1 and his overall grades is likely due to the lack of completed assignments. Really feel that he's unmotivated to be in the classroom, and having the distractor present, even though it created a poor overall classroom environment, was an incentive for him to be at class. Target number 2 showed a similar pattern to target number 1, but not at the same rate. He also now comes in after school for additional help since the distractor left, which is a welcome change. Target number 3 shows increases in academic progress, likely due to not wanting to be suspended again. If I think back on the design in question, there's a handful of things that I would do differently. I would have collected some baseline data from the traditional seating. I would have organized the type of distractions that occurred, whether it was eye contact, verbal, or physical. And I would have included other academic progress notes, such as notebook checks. I think that would have been important to see. I also think I should have collected data on attendance rates, and that would have given me some insight into the overall completed assignments. I really did enjoy my project, and it was good to sit at the back of the classroom and learn that you can see a lot that's going on when you're just sitting out of sight. The literature review was also very insightful, and I highly recommend more reading on seating plans. I think it's going to be very useful in the future in my classroom. The literature that I cited are on the next 2 slides, and I highly recommend them.